This is the Real Digital Transformation podcast series, empowering technology and business professionals to succeed with digital transformation. Now, here's your host, best-selling author and series editor of the Pearson Digital Enterprise series, Thomas Earl.
Hi, this is Thomas Earl, and welcome to another episode of the Real Digital Transformation podcast series. I have with me today Luv Kapur, software engineering lead at BIT. Luv, welcome.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for having me here.
Super. Today we're going to talk about that critical decision organizations need to make in terms of building a solution or buying it. And we're going to discuss this within the context of AI involvement. And so there are different levels and aspects to this overall topic. But just to start off, before we increase the scope of, how this topic applies in the industry, what about AI systems themselves? So when an organization wants to implement AI capabilities within their environment, they need to build an AI system. They can build it from scratch, or they can go to a vendor or a cloud provider that have a lot of out-of-the-box solutions for them. So starting just with that narrow scope, what are your thoughts regarding that decision point right now in the industry?
I think the buy and build decision applies very broadly, whether to AI or general system. There are a few factors that every organization needs to take in consideration regardless. It's the cost, time to value, the risk associated with it, and how much control the organization wants at the end. With AI systems, it's a bit more involved since the cost, the operational cost and the initial investment is huge to build AI systems. So it comes down to the fact an organization needs to ask themselves, and a lot of these decisions are driven by what data will the AI system consume? Because a lot of organizations that are in industries where compliance and regulatory rules are very stringent, and they are very more careful on how their data leaves. And you can see this is why big corporations like banks and investment banks have actually totally restricted usage of ChatGPT and other LLM tools internally, because they're afraid a lot of sensitive information gets leaked. For them, their decision is pretty straightforward, where they need to build by themselves, because the data integrity and data protection is very critical. The other aspect of this is for organizations that are looking to leverage AI for internal use. And when I say internal use, I mean that the software itself will not leave the VPC, the virtual private network itself. Then the axis shifts towards building it, because a lot of these existing systems have very strong, very good, robust APIs that can be leveraged. The risk factor is mitigated because of the data that will be used, and it's easier to build on top of these existing systems. So I think these are the few factors that organizations need to take in consideration, whether to decide specifically for AI systems, at least, whether build or buy.
Yeah, I think you're right. The involvement of massive amounts of data potentially is something that has to be carefully considered, and an organization has to truly be prepared for if they do choose to go down the path of building an AI system. And many organizations may not fully understand the overall scope of that responsibility. Also the types of sophisticated AI systems that are now available, ready-made, out-of-box by cloud providers in particular, who offer them already integrated with their cloud resources, make that a compelling option. So I fully agree with what you were saying. But looking beyond that now, in terms of products in general, and taking AI into consideration when it comes to that decision point, what are you seeing in the industry, and what are your thoughts regarding that?
I think this is where we have noticed the biggest change in the industry. Previously, before the AI came into the mainstream development world itself and its applications, the natural instinct for an organization was to buy software, unless the software itself they are looking at. It's very important to the core competency of the value they're trying to deliver. It's very the IP, the intellectual property of it is very important, like, very, very proprietary algorithms itself. If it's not, then the previous instinct was to always buy software. And then the reason is because, it's lower, the lower cost upfront, because you go onto a subscription model, you don't have to put a lot of investment in. And also, it's not just about buying software once you build. It's not about just building software, my bad, because once you build it, you have to maintain it. Once you have to maintain it, you have key person risk. Do you have enough people next year or day after, if attrition happens, to maintain that software and go forward? So because of all of these things, it was very easy to go towards the decision to buy. But now with AI, one of the biggest bottlenecks was, can we build it fast enough and good enough that it surfaces our needs? AI has sped up development efforts significantly. Like, top of my mind, if I can quote, I think it's at least 20 to 25% sped up. And it's not just about speeding up development. It's the expansion of technical abilities within an organization. Previously, if you want something to be built, you will go to your dev team itself. Now we have seen, citizen developers, like we like to call them, within our organizations, feel more empowered with AI to build internal tooling. There have been instances where companies have been able to wipe code internal tools just for their purposes within weeks, which changes the decision-making process completely, because now you can take a step back, and your instinct will not jump to let's buy, is to evaluate what value you want to get from this purchase. If you can build 80% of what you want within the first wipe coded, let's say in a few weeks, while you do a trial run of a software, the build decision becomes a lot more plausible, a more realistic option now, which was not before. And I think that's the biggest change that we have noticed that's happening in the industry right now, which is empowering a lot of organizations to be more confident in their abilities to say that, what, we don't necessarily have to purchase it. I think for what we need, we can build it internally, driven by the AI-driven development that's happening.
Interesting. And so when we talk about the AI-driven involvement, maybe we could elaborate on that. The types of options that development projects have to involve AI. There is source code generation, which we're familiar with, but do you see this going beyond just generating the source code? Do you see involvement with AI in terms of providing architectural decisions for how the solution should be built, perhaps doing some sort of analysis against existing ready-made systems to build comparable types of features in your custom system? To what extent have you, I guess a better question is, what roles have you seen AI assume in these types of development projects where organizations choose to build instead of buy?
I think one of the few ways AI has assisted this process a lot is in the fact, like, surfacing the capabilities the organization have to what can be achieved with internal tools itself. Previously, a lot of these discussions were within the development groups itself on what can be built and what should be built. With AI now acting, one of the few things you touched on, and I think this is very important, is serve as an architect for the organization itself, where AI has this bird lens view of your organization's capabilities, for going from this is referencing what the source code has been internally generated, what capabilities exist, what design docs exist, what the organization's vision is. This is where AI can assist you in making the right decision, and also helping you guide into a direction where, is this something strategic the organization should take on building it or not? Or we can build something lightweight version. The other aspect which AI is helping on is, maybe you don't want to build everything. Maybe you want to purchase something and augment it, a hybrid approach where you purchase a software solution, it serves 70% of the needs, but now with AI assisting your architecture and your development process itself, you can augment the purchase solution with capabilities that are very specific to your organization itself. And this is where the game-changing part comes in. Also, touching on AI systems itself, not just purchasing regular software. If we come back to the point of purchasing software that is helping build AI's tools itself, you can augment these AI tools with your internal data itself. And this is where you get benefit of both the sides, where you purchase capabilities where you don't want to put a lot of investment in. You leverage AI to build these services around it to orchestrate specific behaviors you want from it, which are very specific to your needs. And then you get the best of both worlds from this.
It's almost like, in addition to generating the source code, acting as a developer, an AI system that you train on your internal business models, business operations, IT infrastructure, and IT environment overall can become an ongoing consultant for you to help decide what to buy, what to build, and then if you choose to build, how to build it. It can become somewhat of a critical resource for an extended period, or indefinitely. Would you agree with that?
Yes, no, absolutely, I would agree with that. This is where the large context the AI has from all the internal resources is very, very valuable to this decision-making process.
Do you perhaps have an example, a project? You don't have to name any names or anything, but just in general, have you seen an organization or internally within your organization go through this process of deciding to build versus buy a product or a solution, and going through that process with the involvement in AI? And if you have, what was that experience like?
Yeah, so I without naming any names, I can quote where we have gone through a case study with a few of our customers where the companies were exploring the opportunity to whether purchase or build a certain software. The biggest risk they saw with building it is the unknown of how long will it take, or whether they will reach to a point where they even know this is feasible, or they will have to leave it. So this is where what they did is they started with AI-driven development, where they came up with a spec internally, a minimal spec of what will give them the value, what was the motivation to even consider, I would say, to begin with. They look back at why we need to go in the market and look for a solution or find or try to build it. Then what they did is they ran a pilot program internally and said, what we will do is we will split two groups. One, we will give them a trial of the software that we have shortlisted, which serves our needs, and we can purchase it. And then the other group, we will give them a lightweight version of something we have internally vibe coded that does 70% of our needs. And then let's go back to our, let's go back and compare and contrast them. and then make a more educated decision. So after this trial with this pilot run they did internally, what they realized is it took them 2 weeks to, get the trial run internally set up, and 2 weeks to white code it. They gave it to different teams, and they didn't notice significant difference actually between the productivity benefits or the actual benefits they were trying to get from this. And this is where it made them clear is why this makes the decision very transparent for them to move towards building it internally. Because as the internal needs changes, because a lot of during this exercise, they also realized is what they want right now is also a constantly changing spec, which they don't want to fight with the vendor. Vendor will only guarantee them X amount of features that comes with. They might promise you that they are building something. There is no guarantee in it that it will come in the future. But something what they have white coded and it's already giving them good enough value, maybe not perfect, gives them the flexibility and freedom to refine it and build it in exactly along and change it, as their specifications change, which for them is very valuable. And this surfaced a very important thing for them is what factors were driving this decision and what were very important to them. And for this organization itself, it was very important to make sure that they can keep up with the changing internal requirements of the tool and not have to fight with the vendor for it and get good enough value through building itself.
Yeah, I can see that having control over what you build in the long term, together with the guidance that you can get and the productivity increases you can get from AI involvement, that it seems quite attractive. It's based on whatever requirements and scenarios and budgets and resources you might have, but that option now is more attractive with AI involvement, because you can really chart your own path. You can do so in a productive manner. You're not dependent on a third party in terms of how you might want to evolve the system in relation to your business. So that makes a lot of sense. Just to recap, before we conclude, Luv, if an organization came to you and said, we have a critical decision to make. We have this new application we need. We can buy it from this vendor, configure it the best we can, and that's option A. Or we can look at building it ourselves, involve AI, but we've never done that before, so it sounds a bit onerous to do it, but we see others doing it, so we are interested. What would your top 3 or top 5 tips or best practices be for that organization in order to make the right decision? And then also, if they choose to go the AI route, to do that correctly, what are the, a list of tips you would give them for that particular scenario?
So first thing I would ask the organization is to analyze the risk factor. Are you dealing with sensitive data for what you're trying to purchase or build? If it's extremely sensitive data, the decision is very clear. You need full control over it. The buying of the software, unless it can be self-hosted, is not a viable option. The second option is how quickly you want it, the time to market factor for it, how critical it is for you to get this system up and running in production. If it's less than 90 days, buy option becomes a lot more feasible, depending upon how much capabilities you want. Then you ask yourself, from your wish list of specifications, what are your wants and what are your needs? If it covers 80 to 90% of your needs itself, then the N is mostly for internal usage. Go towards, you can build it. You can wipe code it. That's possible. The second is looking at your headcount and your internal capabilities itself. Do you have the development headcount and the technical resources to support? Vibe coding will help you go from 0 to a prototype very quickly. But one thing to know is only 10% of vibe-coded products are actually reach production. To reach a production, there's a lot more work involved than just vibe coding. So if you have the development strength internally to support and maintain it, then the buy option is more viable. The build option is more viable, my bad. And otherwise, you lean towards buying software for your needs.
Super. No, this is extremely valuable information, Luv, because it's such an important decision, especially if these are larger products or platforms that organizations invest in and then rely upon for business operations. Which path they choose will often determine how successful it will be, and that can have a direct impact on their business overall. So I think all those tips you listed, organizations should take them very seriously, especially moving ahead when considering AI involvement more and more now. Before we finish, Luv, please tell us a bit more about what you do at BIT and what BIT is all about.
Yes. So I'm an engineering lead at BIT. At BIT, we have built the world's first composable software platform, which is AI driven as well. One of the biggest issues right now in this industry right now we feel is there are a lot of vibe coding tools that help you go from zero to prototype very quickly, which is great for prototyping and validating a lot of ideas. But professional software development, at least at the enterprise level, it takes a lot more than prototyping. This is where BIT comes in, and our composable software tool, which we say that software should not be generated, it should be composed. With BIT, what you can do is you can build components. Every artifact your development process produces, the code, can be versioned, reused, discovered, and assembled. Imagine empowering your development team with Lego-like systems, where they have the capabilities to build these individual components that are self-contained, and they have AI now, which acts as a composer that can assemble these pieces into different products, different screens for you. What that means is, one of the biggest downfalls with AI-generated code is a lot of repetitive code gets produced, which goes against a lot of software development practices where you should not repeat yourself, which also affects code quality at the end because you keep on generating same thing again and again. So with BIT, what you can do is you generate it once, you reference it, and then you compose the existing pieces. That means everything that gets built is being built from these reusable, versionable, discoverable pieces that have been tested. They're already in production, and you're not going down this rabbit hole of bloating your code base with duplicated generated code.
Super. Sounds very powerful. Composability, I think, is something that will always be very important, especially with distributed systems. And now, of course, with AI involvement, that sounds like it has a great deal of potential. Very exciting. So, Luv, thank you for your time today. It's been a very interesting and insightful discussion. And thank you also for sharing your knowledge today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Thomas. It was great being here and being able to discuss and share my knowledge.
Thank you for listening. Follow Thomas on LinkedIn